gone.
Before I'm gone.
I'd be interested in seeing them.
Yeah. So should we make that 5.5 or 6.3? 6.3? Hi, Judy.
I think it would be
Judy?
6.3.
6.3. Can you make that amendment, please, Steph? Oh. And was there anything else? We were just looking at the agenda, Judy. Do you have anything to add or amend?
Thank you. Sorry, I'm late.
It's okay. I only just got here as well. I was confused about the meeting, about the link. But do you have anything to add to the agenda? No.
No, thank you. No.
Okay. So that sounds like we're good with the agenda then. Could I have someone move to approve it?
I'll move.
Thanks, Judy.
I'll
And a
second.
second. Thank you, Andrew. And those in favor?
Fine.
Okay, I need one more person, Andrew. Yes, Andrew is implied. Thank you. Very good. All right, minutes. Anybody have any amendments for the minutes?
No.
No. Excellent. Okay, could somebody move to adopt them, please?
I'll move.
Thank you, Judy. And a seconder. Rondi, and those in favor? Everybody, thank you. Moving along. Public comments. We have no public members to speak. Review of action items from the previous meeting. Page 7. 6, 7. Okay, does everybody have that? Has everybody scrambled down the agenda to find the action items? I can just read them out anyway. Action item 1 is Melissa Harrison put together a grant proposal. I did indeed do that and submit it. I'm not sure when I will hear back. Number 2, Steph Short research whiteboard technology. Well, we did that for the last, for the workshop. Number 3, find heritage assessment criteria provided by consultants. Yes, we got that in the report. Number 4, Jennifer Pierce establish objectives and plan workshop. Yes, you did that very well. Thank you, Jennifer. Previous actions, Jennifer Pierce provide an update on project expenditures, which we're still unclear about.
Yeah, I'm not sure that those are forthcoming. I think that the budget doesn't hang over from the last year. So
I guess we'll just see.
I have inquired about it to the extent to which I can.
Hmm.
And it seems that they are not forthcoming.
Okay. Actionable resolution that the Heritage Commission resolved to take the following steps regarding the Community Heritage Register. Provide support to staff who will notify owners, review and finalize text and registry, provide edits by February 21st. Did we do that? Judy, I think you were going to, was that, do I have that right?
I did receive some edits which were incorporated in the notification process and are now officially registered.
Great. And develop register policy, procedure, and documentation. So that's part of our work plan. So I think.
So review that the edits have been provided. Is the review and finalized text and registry complete?
Yes, and this and number 3 is part of the work that we're going to do. So that's kind of complete in a way. Like it's not something that all of these are now effectively complete or dealt with appropriately.
Okay, good.
Well done.
Yeah, crazy, hey?
Yeah.
Okay. Business arising from the minutes. Right, no, am I in the agenda? Sorry, trying to orient myself. Heritage Legacy Fund. Oh, there's an excerpt from the council meeting. which basically says that what page is it? There must be a better way for me to navigate this document than
Well-
scrolling up and down.
When you go to the link that I sent in
Yeah.
the email, it should give you an HTML version of the agenda.
Oh,
So you can
that
just
will
go
be
to the agenda
easier?
item and click on the blue line.
okay.
Here.
Well, I'm gonna try this for now for opening yet another window. I have so many windows and tabs and
Mhm. You're doing great.
okay. So this is an excerpt from the April 12th meeting, and it says, Councillor Nicholson spoke on behalf of the Heritage Commission's request for council support to apply for a grant through the Heritage Legacy Fund to support updates and additions to the Heritage Trail app and signage as a result of the recently adopted Heritage Registry. And in short, council supported the application for a grant of $900. In actual fact, I think I applied for 700 in the end. And it's for installation and improvement of signage, new heritage trail entries for the registry, and expansion of the QR code website to include those sites. Okay. Any comments on that?
Thank you for doing it.
Good.
Yeah, I'm glad it's good to get it done.
Sorry, how much did you say you actually applied for? Just for my notes.
700.
Thank you.
5.2, heritage alteration permit application. This is for you, Jennifer.
Yes. Sorry, I just started closing some windows and then I couldn't get back. Okay. So I'd like to direct your attention to well, first of all, let me start by saying the point of showing this today is that Daniel wanted me to get a feel from you all what your desired involvement would be in helping with the execution of this permit, which involves the design of the signage for the Moonwinks cottage. And that would mean not just, how big is the sign and the material and all that, but also what is the contents of the sign. So in the permit itself, the requirement is that the municipality provide the applicant with our preferred design, and then the applicant would review it and they're the ones that are covering the costs, but not until we've presented them with the design. So you can see that that's the reason why the permit is attached. So you can see on page 3 of this document, letter D that says signage design, approval, installation, and maintenance. That's where it clarifies that the municipality is to provide the design and the total costs, including the design itself, the manufacture, the installation, and the maintenance of the sign, and our proposed location to the owner, who can then provide comments that we could back to the municipality to consider. But ultimately, the owner is responsible for the costs of that sign. So the thinking was that the commission might be interested in being involved in some aspect of that. So we just wanted to get an idea of that before I am off on my leave, thinking that there will probably be minimal staff support for this until I get back.
I'd suggest you just do the sign the way you think it should be, so that they have something to go with: size, cost, layout. The layout, size, etc. What do you want to say on it? And then let someone approve it, as opposed to letting the muni try to write the sign.
Right.
Does
So
anyone else have thoughts, Judy?
I think if we can figure out a picture, and I don't know if the applicants have any of the old shots of the tea house, but I would assume that the archives would get a picture that we like. It's the process that we did for the registry, I think. Figure out what the heritage value is. Maybe not do a full, although eventually it might be on the register. But, what the significance is and what the heritage values are, and figure out some little blurb like we did for all of the spots on the register.
Yeah.
Do we have a logo that we were thinking of in terms of, you know, this is a heritage site? Did we ever work on that?
No, we haven't really. I was wondering, I know the municipality has kind of unified all of its signage lately. Presumably they would want to do that with this as well somehow. What do you think, Jennifer? Does that sound right?
There's a signage bylaw, but I'm not sure that applies to municipality. I'd have to check with Parks and Recreation. I think they're the ones. Do you know, Steph?
All signage would be within municipal branding.
Hello, Ronnie.
That won't be diverted from, but I think if there's some
Okay,
heritage
okay.
uniformity that wanted to be developed, that would be
Okay. I'll just call it.
acceptable too.
Right.
Yeah, I think, I think this is, it's not, doesn't have to be worked out this meeting, but it seems to me that probably the Muni will want to use their branding as a kind of framework. And then we might want to think about how we would signify the heritage part of it. And then there's the question of content. And probably I would ask the archives to contribute to that. They probably have a good photo and they probably have a description. And
So I guess what the direction that I'm looking for with this item is just kind of to notify the commission that this exists, that the Muni is responsible for providing this, and also that we likely will not have staff available to work on it until I get back. I think Daniel, that's the approach that he's going to want to take. So we just wanted to see what interest there was from the commission to be involved in that, and whether you all were interested in possibly putting together some content such that upon my return around January, something might be available, or if you'd like to just put the conversation on hold until I get back.
yeah, I think it seems to me, everybody, that we have had this conversation a couple of times about signage. We want to do signage. We think signage is important. And we also recognize that there's a design issue and a kind of template. We need a template issue for heritage signage around the island. Something we want to do, and we're not quite sure what that will look like. So I think that we should talk about it in one of our upcoming meetings at a time that makes sense and figure that out. And this could be a part of that. And it seems to me that it's hardly urgent.
And
Yes.
there is some mention of the signage template and maybe also this particular sign in the work plan draft. That's the next item on the agenda.
Right. Yeah.
So
I think that's does that coherent? I think that's our response is yes, we would like to have some say in the content. We would like to contribute to the content, and we can coordinate the content. And we also have this bigger project of figuring out heritage signage for the municipality in general. So does anybody have anything to add to does anybody have any comments on what I just suggested?
Yeah, I agree, and certainly we would want input on the wording for the specific signage, but also going forward generally, the commission would want to probably provide the wording for heritage information signage going forward, and not just on the input of the wording. We probably want to have input on the image of that template. It would probably have, just like parks and trails have a certain color background, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
Heritage would probably have a theme color. It would probably have just like trails have an animal logo. I'm not sure that would be appropriate for heritage, but it's something that we might want to think about, or maybe ask I don't know whether the outfit that did the branding for other parts of the municipal branding might want to have input on that, but we might have ideas of a kind of a logo that would go on the sign that would signify heritage. And an idea might be something like, maybe we take the gable pattern with the Tudor half boarding, yeah, on the library, the old general store, and maybe that becomes the logo or symbol for heritage. It's just an idea, but there may be other ideas as well.
We could go to other heritage commissions and see what they've done as examples.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a good idea.
What about the design for signage on the heritage trails? So I realize that's bowentrails.ca, but wouldn't we want to sort of kind of be in the same kind of design area?
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
John and I talked about that a lot. Like how are we going to design this, and what are we going to use to signify that it's heritage? Whereas he has some other stuff that's nature and that has a bird on it, and to coordinate with any future signage. And in the end, we just kind of did our own thing that we thought looked heritagey, and knowing that it may come into conflict at some point. And but it's not. I mean, it's kind of semi-permanent, right? Like it's going to wear out eventually. So I think it's something to bear in mind, but not. We should do what makes sense to everybody, and those signs can either be changed or we can adopt that design. But I'm happy to bring that. We could have a meeting and I can bring that design and we can look at that. Judy, you're muted.
Jennifer's suggestion that we just say yes and that we work on the timeline for January.
Yeah, I think that's
put it
fair.
into the work plan. So this was a 5-minute item that we've spent too much time on.
Yeah, I agree. So is that enough for you, Jennifer? I think, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you need to vote on it or not, but.
No, I don't think so. And Maureen agrees. And maybe when we do talk about it, we might ask whoever's doing the rest of the signage to come and speak with us as well. Okay, next.
Okay. Next is the work plan, which I can share screen on. I did also
that would be great.
Everyone the documents that I'm going to share in case you want to look at them. But essentially these two documents, one is the draft work plan and the other one is simply the Excel spreadsheet that I'm using to populate that certain parts of that work plan. So they're kind of the same thing. And I've mostly just simply taken the heritage workshop items and put them into the work plan. So there shouldn't be anything surprising in there. I think I'm just gonna have to share my whole screen. I'm getting too confused. Okay. So.
Was this in the agenda?
Yes, the next item, the heritage work plan.
I know it was on
Do
that.
you mean these? Do you mean these
It was late
documents,
items.
Judy?
Oh, they're not attached to the agenda, if that's what you're asking. There's a separate email.
They were emailed separately, Judy, from
Oh,
Jennifer.
right.
Okay, so here is the work plan document, and it basically just says here the same sort of introduction that we did before. I didn't change the scope. This is all the same as before, and the process the same as before. The timing is the same as before, just indicating that we're in phase 3. Roles and responsibilities are unchanged. What is new now is the schedule, and then the cost estimate, which I will show you in a second, and then the detailed tasks and responsibilities, which come straight from the workshop itself. So that table from the workshop just turned sideways and fills in here. So I'll just go back now that you've seen, those are all the parts, that's the last bit. So if I go back now, we can go to the timeline. And the Excel spreadsheet is the exact same thing because it's easier to work in Excel and then paste it into Word than to try to work on it in Word. So that is all that's happening. And then to the right of this timeline is the budget. So all the items are lined up, and I just put in their expenses that I was aware of.
Awesome.
Okay, so now we can start to discuss this. I'm going to make it a little bit easier to read, hopefully here.
Okay, so does everybody understand what we're going to do now? We're going to populate the yellow area on the left of this shared screen, which is an Excel sheet that is basically a schedule that Jennifer has populated with all of the items that we put in the work plan workshop that we had last month. So now we have to decide when we decide when they need to be completed by, or when we would like them to be completed by, and how long they're going to take. So we can put in the end point and then work backwards, and then look at it overall, and we can switch them around so that we're not trying to do them all in 1 month.
And for now, I've just done it up until, so these are your months right here, and it's just working on this during that month or not. Here's your each task, overall task, and then it's broken down into its parts down below, like a Gantt chart would do. Right. And it goes from next month, June, to the following May. So it's a 12-month plan.
Right.
So I hope that's pretty clear. And I just put in here, I just filled it in with what seemed to make sense just to help the meeting go a little bit faster, but these are not permanent in any way.
So then to get us rolling, I think that we decided in the workshop that the assessment, that the Heritage Register and Heritage in general assessment of value was in some ways the most urgent and also fairly straightforward. And I think that's probably why it has the short timeline on it.
Yes, so the number one is was high because it's an island plan priority, high urgency.
Yeah.
On the left here. And then number two, the assessment process was also high. So that's why they're kind of, I've moved them to the items 1 and 2, and then also put them up front in the timeline.
Yeah. And I think that we also, we talked in the workshop, we talked about having like one meeting to sort out the assessment process, one meeting to sort out the strategic plan, maybe one meeting to talk about the planning tools and policies. So that may require some committee work earlier to bring that stuff forward. The outreach and education is a little more ongoing, but we did suggest that we were going to have a meeting on planning for next year's Heritage Week at the end of the year. So that should get us going. Does anyone have any comments?
I have some concerns about the timeline for the strategic plan development, given Jennifer's absence. And this has commission members finishing this by December. That seems overly optimistic to me.
Right.
I'm not sure what to propose as an appropriate timeline. Maybe others have a view.
There may be a staff member assigned to the commission. So my comments earlier about the sign and not having a staff member necessarily working on that while I'm gone doesn't necessarily mean that you won't have a staff member for the whole commission while I'm gone.
What is the time constraint on doing the strategic plan? Is do we need to have it done for for budget reasons or anything like that? Is there, Maureen, is there any kind of time constraint on that, or?
I don't think there's an issue that's budget related that's specifically on the Heritage Strategic Plan. You've got a consultant that comes into the picture in here that is part of the plan, and that's a $3,500 contribution.
Do we need I don't think we need a consultant for the strategic plan, do we?
So before in the workshop, you had suggested a consultant for those items which you do not have expertise on the commission for. I think it's listed here, potential needs and inputs that the Heritage Commission may not have in-house. And specifically, you had mentioned the commemoration of Indigenous and other diverse types of heritage.
Oh, yes.
So that was the thinking on that one.
So we don't have $3,500 allocated to our work this year. So tying a funded element and a December deadline is a little tricky.
But if that budget item is related to getting specialist support for that particular item, that doesn't have to be done before the strategic plan. That would be one of the items on the strategic plan, wouldn't it?
I didn't follow that.
What I'm saying is that would be something that the strategic plan would direct us to do, not something that would have to be done prior to the plan. See what I mean?
Okay, yeah, so the plan would say we need additional expertise related.
Yeah, and a budget.
And a budget.
Yeah. And that might delay aspects of the assessment process as well, because, for example, assessing Indigenous cultural values or whatever would be something we may have to say, okay, it's a work in progress.
Yeah. So I guess in terms of deadline for the strategic plan, if it does throw up some budget items, then we do kind of want to get it done by December, because the budget process is beginning then, right? Begins in November.
It should be starting a bit earlier than that.
Right.
But it stretches out over a number of months, Melissa. I think,
right.
Steph, what are we looking at for a reasonable budget process this year? When do departments need to get there?
That's early fall. Departments are putting their requests in to the CFO.
Right.
And then he meets and discusses November, works on for usually a January 1st draft of finance meeting.
Well, it sounds as though we know what the ask is for at least that component. It's a $3,500 ask to fill this gap in our knowledge base.
Also, we may have greater specificity about where our gaps are once we dive into completing the strategic plan, and we can actually bullet point those things specifically.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you guys are comfortable with the December deadline?
Yeah, cautiously comfortable with it.
What's the public engagement? What are we thinking about for that?
I don't know what Jennifer is thinking about it. I think I would perhaps
straight from the workshop.
Right.
Engagement strategies.
Not just another.
So how about getting more people suggesting
maybe it's
things
not
that were
from
important to
there.
them?
I think it was just engagement on the strategic plan. I thought I remembered discussion about that, but maybe it didn't end up in the notes.
Yeah.
Of just getting like a public, eyes on the plan and comments.
Is that something?
But it might not be necessary.
It's September. Is that something that we would consider an in-person component on that? given conditions, or would we just do that all online or by mail, as we've done more recently?
I think to me that to get people to look at a strategic plan, I don't think that there's going to be a huge amount of interest in it, but we might want to circulate it to the interested organizations. And I don't think we'd want to have like an open house about it or something. It's more of an internal working document than it is determinative of the outcomes, right? So
Yeah, good point. It's not a very touchy feely.
So it's like a targeted engagement.
Yeah. So I don't really see that as being a big deal. Okay, what's revise strategic plan, adopt strategic plan? Okay.
So the targeted engagement could be with the related organizations, with Heritage, with Museum and Archives.
Yeah, I think they're going to be the only people who are going to have anything particular to say about it, aren't they? And the Art Council. Okay, so let's move down the list, and I think that will give us clarity, and we can circle back and change things. So the assessment process, I think we talked about doing that at our next meeting, and I think that that's a good plan. It feels quite achievable and finite, and we've got various suggested. We've got the form from Don Luxton, and he included a couple of other things in there. So so that's that. And then planning tools and policies, that would be, well, as it says, drafting incentive policies, and perhaps speaking to staff about that, and it would include kind of looking into what's available. And I think next year is a good time to be thinking of doing that, because I think we probably would want a little bit of support with that, figuring out what those policies would be and what would be useful for staff.
What does it mean by ongoing coordination? Is that with the planning department and the I don't know, building department and things like that?
So that is the, oh wait, I need to scroll down. Okay, it's listed here in the tasks. So Snug Cove design guidelines, parks, feedback on land use and planning matters, incentive, heritage conservation areas. No, that's not it. So it's just these first three: coordinate with Snug Cove design guidelines, parks, and feedback on land use and planning.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how that's going to work.
I mean, at this time, it's not really anything specific other than the Snug Cove design guidelines, but it's more like in the timeline to understand that there is other stuff that's also ongoing that may impact the availability of time that you have.
Okay.
Have a specific deliverable or anything like that.
Yeah, and we should think about our outreach to those groups as well. Peter?
I noticed under planning tools and policies, there isn't an engagement line, a public engagement line. And maybe we just haven't discussed it, but when you start to talk about what kind of tools one could use, which also could include disincentives like demolition delay in order to explore options, those kind of things. Could it come back to bite us if we don't engage? It could bite us if we do engage too, but I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah,
also,
right.
Item 4 is all dedicated to the public engagement items.
But but not specifically engagement on 3.
Yeah.
On item 3.
I agree. I think we should add in public engagement into number 3.
What are you engaging people on? Which item?
Planning tools and
But the draft
policies.
policies.
Yeah,
on-
but which part within that?
After draft policies.
Okay, I mean, unless the timeline changes on these, your engagement would happen outside of this timeline.
And my question is whether the commission would be doing the engagement if it's an actual, if it's being considered as a municipal policy, that would be, I would think, most likely done through municipal staff.
Right. The engagement, you mean?
Yeah, it would be like a formal process if we've got a policy or a bylaw coming out of this. So we might provide lots of input, research and so forth to get to the point where there's a document that requires public engagement, but we would not be doing the public engagement per se, would be my understanding.
So
Okay,
maybe then,
so the work plan is just what we as a commission are doing. But I guess so we're not, I mean, if there is a piece though that is municipally driven or pieces, should that be referenced somehow so we see how all the pieces fit together? Our pieces and the municipal.
So I could
pieces.
definitely reference that here, suggest incentives of preservation in return for development incentives. Like, and support municipal engagement on suggested policies as needed.
That works.
okay, great. Okay, next. Outreach and education.
A budget over here. There's just, most of this is just printing budget.
We might like to, I mean, well, yes, so we suggested $1,000, an annual $1,000 potential budget for Heritage Week.
Which could be partially offset by this funding that you've applied for.
No, I don't think so. That was very
Is the
specific.
walking tour, this is that electronic one, or the
Mhm.
walking tour during Heritage Week?
No, it's the electronic one.
Oh, okay. This may be more than you want to spend, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Melissa, the grant application,
yeah,
how much of that was in kind?
it's 50-50.
So there's no $700 matching fund required.
No,
So should it be reflected here? We're not asking for $700 in a municipal budget for that.
no, that's right.
Yeah, really what should happen
Mostly
is-
Judy's slave labor. Hope she realizes that.
Sorry. No, it should just be taken out altogether, the dollar figure.
I think I did put in an item for potential post. But no, I think that's an unnecessary complication. There's no.
That clear, or do you want it totally out?
It doesn't require, it doesn't, as it stands, it doesn't require any funding from the municipality.
So
It's good for them to know that you've applied for the grant.
I would take grant money out and I would call the category grant funded walking tour.
Okay,
And that gets the grant.
Okay.
okay, so and this, the Heritage Week. Yeah, I think that's the right timing. We should think about that in the fall, in time for the Heritage Week is always in February. And the events are time for February. And we have stakeholder outreach, April, May. Signage templates, January, February. Is that when you're back, Jennifer? When are you back?
Mm-hmm. January.
Okay. And but though it's not necessarily an issue that Jennifer would have input into, but so we might be able to move that further forward. And then down to the Heritage Register at the bottom, updating the existing, research for new, and develop a process for updates. So I guess that process issue is part of number 2. So it will be timed with number 2. All right, so we've run through the whole thing. And if we think about our year by meetings,
Hold on a minute.
Maureen?
You need to call for questions. What is key stakeholder outreach? What are we doing there?
That was when you talked in the workshop about wanting to talk with people that particularly, here it is, direct one-on-one outreach to stakeholders who own key properties, particularly properties at risk.
Okay.
And that that kind of goes hand in hand with research new, because we'll be identifying properties that we'll want to talk to the owners about, probably. Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that an ongoing thing once we identify something?
Yes.
You start talking about the planning tools and policies and.
Yes. Peter, are you suggesting that we should move 4.4 into 5?
Possibly. I mean, it could go both places, but certainly as we are researching new sites, we'll need to flag that we're going to want to do that one-on-one stakeholder outreach. However, an argument for keeping it in 4 is that we already know about a number of sites that are on our informal inventory, and so we already have, you know, at least an idea of who some key people we're going to want to reach out to in the next phase. So I'm of 2 minds.
Okay, so what I was going to say was that then if we think about our year in terms of meetings, like the number of meetings that we are going to have, we probably have one, maybe we meet in, for example, maybe we meet in July, maybe we meet in September, and then maybe we meet in November. And then the following year, January, in time for Heritage Week, and so on. So if we think about that rhythm, then what do we want to have done for the July meeting? What would we want to do for the September meeting? And what would we want to do in the November meeting? Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you, Maureen, rhythm, timing and rhythm wise?
Yes. What about the rest of you? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with that plan.
So then I think the November meeting would be our conversation about Heritage Week preparation specifically. The July meeting would be our conversation about heritage assessment. And then that leaves the September meeting to talk about planning. Oh, no, would that be strategic plan? What do we talk?
Yeah, wouldn't July be when we're finalizing the strategic plan? Or have we done that already? in this
No.
meeting?
No, this is the work plan.
Yeah.
So the strategic plan would be a different conversation that we might want help facilitating because it's more high level and conceptual, I guess.
So assessment process has the shortest timeline, and it's the earliest early start, and it's supposed to end by the end of August. So I guess that would be our July meeting.
Yeah, so that's a good timeline for that one. Now, then the next question is, do we want to try for a strategic plan in September?
I think so. Otherwise, it's not going to get done.
Yeah, so should we do that? And I don't think it's too, what did we were talking about this?
I think it'll help with the strategic plan if we've done some of the work and thought about the assessment process too.
Yeah, and then we can circulate some strategic plan tables of contents to everybody, and we, so I think that will be okay. I think we'll be okay with that. So let's have the strategic plan time for September, and then we can finalize that at the next meeting, and also figure out Heritage Week, because by then BC Heritage will have decided what the topic's going to be. So November will be the Heritage Week meeting, and then perhaps January might be, is that when we want to talk about planning and policy tools? Because we'll have Jennifer back then.
Good thought.
Yeah, I have January as still Heritage Week preparation, which is in February, and the beginning of signage templates.
Okay.
Simultaneous researching new.
That might be a nice idea, actually, guys, if we decided we could launch our new signage for Heritage Week. Think about that. Or do we want to use Heritage Week to talk about incentives?
Would you talk about the strategic plan maybe? Because by then it'll be done.
Good. Thoughts?
So Jennifer's back for the January meeting. So then we can recap and get help with respect to the what we've done with the assessments and the strategic plan. And we can update on the heritage preparations. And, if we've got any time left over, we can start in on ideas about signage or the planning, the tools.
Yeah, like where do the tools fit in? And I have a question.
Right now they're here.
Maybe Maureen would kind of weigh in, and that's there's going to be a municipal election next year, and as we get closer to the election, is it more difficult to put things forward to council? And so if we want to have a resolution on this, well, hopefully the strategic plan would already be approved, but if we wanted to have a resolution on support and tools, are we wanting to make sure that's well in advance of 6 months in advance of the election? Things get kind of silly the closer you get to an election, right? October, I think now.
When's the election?
It is in
November.
No, it's October this year.
October 21?
I got it in the calendar.
I don't know.
Or 22?
22.
Right.
Like it can't be. No.
Sorry?
Just thought, no, it couldn't be 21, it's 22. Yeah. You panicked me.
And I guess my point is we've been bringing council along on this, and they're well acquainted with where we're going, and are supportive. Mayor is supportive. And so, you know, we hate to be in a position where something happened and council changed significantly and there wasn't that understanding or support, and we're kind of starting from square one, or council just feeling shy about making decisions that might affect election prospects. So anyway, so I think it has implications for timing.
I also think that we do want help with it, and it makes sense if that person's Jennifer because we've been working together so long. The other thing is the which we're going to talk about later is the Snug Cove guideline thingies. That is, you know, Snug Cove is where most of our heritage buildings are, so that needs to be taken into account, and that's going to be also probably not happening until Jennifer comes back. So I think,
sorry.
well, I was just going to say, I think this is going to be something that's in the strategic plan and is going to happen in 22. And the question is, do we want to try and get it done in January, or do we want to try and get it done in March? And also the other aspect of it is, you know, we can be doing work in the background, we can be gathering, we can be looking at other incentive structures that other organizations have and be acquainting ourselves with those as we go along. It could be an ongoing item.
There's a lot in the report from phase
Yeah,
1, phase 2.
maybe
Say
I'm
that again,
overthinking it.
So could I come back to Peter's question, which was, how does this relate to the election? It's really hard to predict, Peter, whether, you know, a council is going to go right to the very end and continue to be working away, or whether it's going to go into silly season. But this plan goes through to May, which is 6 months ahead of the election. So if we simply focus on this plan and trying to get as much of it done as possible, I think we'd be in good standing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, it does, and not fall off the edge and find ourselves bleeding into, you know, August kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Melissa and Jennifer's approach of trying to tighten the focus on each of those meetings is a good approach. With the January meeting, I was getting a little worried as the list of things to deal with in January were sort of enumerated, but maybe we could, for now, just agree that we're meeting on that schedule, and then as we get closer to January, then sharpen it up a bit, depending on what work we've been able to do by then.
Mm-hmm.
So could somebody remind me what I said we do in September? Did we strategic plan,
The plan,
right?
yeah. And
Strategic plan.
working with the table of contents,
Yeah.
so that we would fill out that table of contents between September and January.
Right. Table of contents.
Of what document?
The Heritage Strategic Plan. Does that make sense?
So rather than doing it so that it's finished in December, you want to do it here?
No, I'm saying that our September meeting be focused on the plan.
Yeah, so I think we would move 1.1 to start on September. Does that make sense?
Okay, so just extend it. And then all of this would then move over.
Yeah.
That makes sense. You're probably not going to get something adopted by council in December.
Yeah, that probably means this gets moved over.
And that also means you're back.
So do the tools and policies get adopted by council at the same time as the strategic plan?
Not in this table.
This one doesn't include the adoption of the tools and policies. It's just drafting.
You know, Maureen, you reminded me that we have those, that we have in the report that we got from Don Luxton, that he outlined the, you know, best practices, tools and policies and incentive stuff. And I think I'm overthinking the work that we have to do for it. I think probably similarly to looking at the heritage assessment tool, we probably just need to review what he's done, because I think that he gave us everything that we need in that document, and maybe we can knock that item off in a meeting too, more or less, you know, with some reconsideration.
I agree, Maureen, and or Melissa, sorry. I agree, because I'm thinking if we could get it all wrapped with the strategic plan in early 2022. Otherwise, if we're just drafting the planning tools and policies, and I think, yeah, they're basically drafted, it's just a matter of, you know, then we're probably not getting it to council before the election.
So maybe then we should bring that back to, maybe that we should do that in September. What do you think about that?
Sure, that's part of the strategic plan work.
I mean, we can look at our table of contents, the strategic plan in September, and maybe we can also do those tools and policies.
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
So are you swapping the staff support and tools and the incentive policies, basically just flip flop those?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Clearly there's a staff role there because they're the people who are going to be dealing with it ultimately, but I don't think it's going to be controversial because it's, you know, it's all kind of practical stuff anyway.
Where the staff support and where the staff support will be needed on the tools will be in terms of drafting the council report recommendations.
I'm going to have to excuse myself.
Okay, Randy. Thank you.
This staff support and tools, just to make sure everyone's clear, is connecting to this item 3. Where is it? Provide an approach for supporting planning staff in conserving heritage.
Right. So it's the practicalities of how that the flow of conversation happens between the Heritage Commission and planning staff, right?
We had talked about, for example, making it so that other staff people would also be aware of heritage planning tools, so that as they're reviewing permits or things, those solutions could come to mind, like a checklist or something that would help them.
Right. So it strikes me that that kind of thing might be a next stage. Yeah, I think that timeline makes sense. I think that it sounds like a next stage kind of approach, that once that's approved, once the policies are approved, then we can talk about implementation, right? It's an implementation issue, I think.
Yeah.
So then we've got November to talk about Heritage Week. And I think in that meeting, we can finalize the strategic plan probably, or, you know, get close to finalization. And yeah, I think that's looking kind of there. Am I wrong?
Sounds good to me.
And then we deal with January when it comes.
It all needs to get done, and it's all interconnected. So whichever one we start with and whichever one we work on, it'll all just, you know, start to fall together. So, you know, I think if we figure out the assessment, that's going to give us a lot of ideas and that will help both with, the strategic plan and the planning tools. So either one of those, they're almost interchangeable. The sooner we get to the strategic plan and figure that one out, I think is going to be give us guidance.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's the strategy.
Yeah. The only other thing I think is getting the signage, doing the signage, which seems to me to be kind of, it's one of those small decisions that is impossible to make. But I think we could probably kind of keep working on that gradually. Like we could ask somebody if they wouldn't mind talking to us a little bit about the municipal signage, and it wouldn't take up a huge amount of a meeting. It doesn't need a meeting to itself, so we can just work on that on an ongoing basis. All right.
Do you want me to indicate a bit of signage templates stuff somewhere in here just to kind of trigger that?
Yeah, if that works for
Put a little
everybody
square
else.
there.
I just kind of feel that we can get that going.
Is Sophie available to help with any of that? I mean, she's got some skills in that area, and she does a lot of the ordering of the ready-made signs.
I would think that she would need to be involved due to the signage and communications policy. That she unifies all those things.
We would go to Sophie rather than back to Rethink. She's basically keeper of the brand.
Say it
Right.
again.
We would go to Sophie rather than to Rethink, the company that developed the brand. She maintains the municipal brand these days.
So maybe we could. Who said that? Maybe we could invite her to the July meeting if she's available.
You mean July or January?
July.
To talk about signage in general.
Yeah, if she could just give us a quick.
So right here.
Yeah.
I think it might be better process for her that we give her an indication of what we're looking for. She's committees often invite her to meetings.
Oh,
She doesn't have the bandwidth to visit them all, but would be open to receiving your ideas.
I think if we've got some ideas, then, we can go to her and sit down in her office and lay some formats out, and she can, figure out her timeline in terms of helping us and working on it. But, for her to come to one of these meetings, I think would be really difficult it's more something to put in front of her.
I agree.
sure. Okay.
So we can have it on the timeline, and somebody has to follow up, and just, once we've got some ideas from ourselves, then somebody is delegated to go and talk to her.
Yeah. So why don't we put it on the agenda at the next meeting for something to follow up on? Can you do that, Steph? Poke us for the next meeting.
Yes, I'm actually making a meeting schedule as you're talking.
Oh, that's.
And I look forward to reviewing with you. Finish this excellent plan.
Okay. Right. I'm feeling like we know what we're doing. What am I missing?
Clarity around which expenditures fall into this year
And next year.
and which ones are next year. Because as I look at this, I'm thinking that they're probably all next year.
Yes.
So when I take this, when this goes to council and they ask me questions about the work plan and what this budget means, Say this is a preview of a budget request for the coming year.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's right.
Other than the Heritage Register printing, this item here.
Oh, yes. We should talk about that.
That
probably at the
theoretically you
next
could do
meeting.
this year.
Yeah. What do you think about that, everybody? I was just thinking maybe we should talk about that at the next meeting. It feels like it's timely to talk about what the Heritage Register should look like in that respect. If it's a papery thing or a website thing, or
So the $500 in the budget is for printing?
Mhm.
Okay. So we have the thing that was passed by council that is digital now, right?
So the 500 would cover like a series of pamphlets that you could make available at strategic locations like the museum and archives or something like that. It would not
library.
full on mailer to the whole island or anything.
No.
But if you wanted to print some booklets or some brochures that are then available, like we do that for other things like the parks plan, for example. That would not cover posters or things like that.
So the question now, posters are a better idea. Question now is whether or not the budget item should be in this year's budget or next year's.
Yeah. So maybe
Okay,
that
so-
one should be in this year's.
So then we have a design for something that gets printed about the register, whether it's a pamphlet or potentially a poster. I mean, there's a lot of information there, so there's a fair amount of design work, but it'd be hard to get it into a little pamphlet, even if it was, 8.5 by 14. But if the question is,
A question
yes,
for Sophie, once you know what
yeah.
information you'd like to have, to reach out to her and just see.
So if it's in this year's budget, who is going to work on that, and when do we work on it?
Well, it's not technically in this year's budget.
Well, that was going to be my question. There is nothing in this year's budget, right?
This year's budget. We didn't request anything.
Okay, so it's next year. Okay.
I think it's next
So we
year.
don't have to worry about the time. We can. I think that is going to. It would be good to have that for the summer, but if it's not in this year's budget, never mind. No, that's irrelevant.
Let's just not lose the opportunity to have it for next year's budget, and the process is in September, is it? So we have to have our budget lined up for September.
So let's put that in the work plan for sometime next March, for instance, so that we've got it ready for the summer of 22 for the tourists.
Well,
The design,
I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be putting in.
well, whatever that budget $500 was for printing
Yeah.
the register, that's under line 5, I think. Then let's have that.
Because that's more like a deliverable. I don't really have the deliverables indicated in
Okay.
the line,
Well, there's something in
which
terms of
maybe I
design.
should, but it doesn't have those right now.
So if there's work involved in terms of figuring out the sign, like the signage and like the Moonwinks signage, then it seems to me that if we're going to be doing that, that we would like it would be preferable to have it ready for, if not this summer, then certainly next summer. So that would be March or May for us to have it finalized.
So you're thinking another line item, basically.
Hold on a minute. I'm a little concerned about thinking about this in terms of producing something for tourists and defending that expenditure before council. I have no problem going to council and saying we need a website that reflects our municipal heritage register. I have no problem going to council and saying, we need some hard copies of our register.
Mm.
Beyond that, I'm not sure I would get support.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that I think 500 might be a little bit high. I think usually my impression is that usually a heritage register, one would want a paper copy in the library for those who are not online, and you'd want that to look reasonably professional. But probably the printing for that wouldn't cost $500. And then I think what I've seen is that most municipalities, many municipalities have a website that has their register on there with some of them have an entry for each property, and I have liked that, mostly because I'm going to see what they're doing, not because I'm actually interested in their heritage properties. The city of Vancouver, I think, just has a big, like it's, I don't know, like a scanned PDF or something. Like they don't have, there's just like a line. I mean, I guess they have so many properties that it would be preposterous to have one item for each entry, but they just list the property and I think the address and one other thing. So, you know, there's a range of the ways that municipalities deal with it, but I don't think that it's something that we need to circulate to everybody because it's available information, and I also don't think it would be very interesting. I mean, we could produce something that is interesting, but it wouldn't be the register. It would be, you know, something more akin to the old paper walking tour. So I think anything like that would come under the heading, it would be budget for outreach and education rather than budget for the heritage register, I think. That's my feeling about it. I don't know what other people think.
I agree. There should be a hard copy in the library, but like I actually, in my mind, I like the idea of brochures, either brochures that are like a really pithy outline for the public of register buildings that can be available somewhere. It's part of public education and also good for tourists, or maybe it's more in the format of a walking tour. So it serves to tell people what's on the register, but it's in the form of a walking tour, and that's good for residents and tourists alike, and can be in strategic locations where both residents and tourists would find it.
So if we're thinking of making a brochure, which wouldn't be super expensive to do, but potentially would be work, maybe we could talk about that in November when we're thinking about what we want to do for Heritage Week, because that might be something that would be nice to circulate at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I feel like we have, I feel like I have clarity about what we're going to do when, and that's what this is about. And I feel like we've covered off all of the things that we need to do. And we've also discussed the budget. Is there anything else?
Just one thing I might have missed, because my mind may have been off thinking about some things. But do we need to think about budget for design assistance for the informational signage? Is that something that can just be done in-house by staff, or is that something that has to be outsourced?
It would be done in-house.
Okay, that answers my question.
And the Moonwinks signage, any fees like that would be covered by the applicant. So I mean, eventually. So there would need to be some temporary funding.
Well, congratulations, Melissa, actually, for walking us through this and thinking it through. I think that this was an excellent exercise, and to Jennifer for pulling together the timeline and the budget. I feel it's a great start.
So it sounds like at least Peter thinks that we're pretty much there.
I agree with Peter. I think you've done a great job. You know, it's a little complicated, but manageable to figure out. Good job.
That's good.
So I have a question though for you all, which is what I'll be doing is, I mean, I can just do it right now, actually, is just putting this here. So there's your updated table in Word, and then this one. Deleting this older one. Okay, so now you have your schedule in the work plan, and then this cost estimate section. Do you even want to put this budget here, or do you think that we don't need it since we don't have expenses for the 2021 timeframe? Or, you know, do you want to have it broken down like this? I mean, it's very sketchy. So alternately, we could just say we anticipate expenses in 2022.
Yeah.
Around
Yeah.
this amount or something, and say, you know, breakdown would be provided for budgetary purposes.
No, can't we just include that table and change the date to 22?
This, yeah, I can also do that. Whatever you like, so.
And we are ahead of the game in terms of our budget.
Yeah.
What's the process, Maureen, for getting our budget into the budget review process for 2022, along with the other committees and all that? Is that something that you would take on?
No, ordinarily the staff liaison would
Okay.
would
That's
respond
stuff.
to a call from the CFO. And just to note, other committees don't have budgets, with the exception of the Community Economic Development Committee. ECAC, the Environment and Climate Action, has a grant that they make recommendations on. So for us as a Heritage Commission to have a budget request is, let's say, it sets us apart from a number of other committees. We have had an approved budget in the past, so hopefully we will have an approved budget in the future.
We should put ginger nuts on there as well.
Ginger nuts.
I mean, I don't think it's entirely fair, because like the community center has like however many million are they paying for, and then the water treatment plant. I mean, we're not putting in anything like that. So
No, it's
Think big.
all I'm saying is that when you look at the committees, it is unusual for a committee to have a budget.
right. Well, hopefully they'll see. Hopefully it'll be evident what we're asking for.
So I made a list of like the upcoming meetings. I was quite excited to do do all of our meeting plan for the year. Then became less excited when I realized how many orange squares there were. It stopped making sense. But can I just show you what I have? And if it's too much and you guys want to go home, then we can do it by email or
Let's see.
do a quickie. Okay. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have June. Thought it was clear that we'd start assessment. It seemed like signage would be coming up a lot, and the Heritage Registry appearance.
Yep.
July, the strategic plan, I think, but later you said you wanted that in September. But then
Yeah,
you want-
no, the July, there's not June and July. There's only one meeting.
Okay, so June, or so July, I guess, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so the strategic plan is September.
Okay. So July is assessment process, signage, registry.
Yeah.
Okay, September is the strategic plan, table of contents. Planning tools and policies, and get the budget request,
I take that out. Oh,
budget request.
I guess what you're saying is to make sure that it gets included.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Would leave it for now.
Yeah. And there isn't an October, there's a November.
Okay, sorry. I was just looking at those little squares. This is pretty general, I guess.
Guess we could always insert meetings if we feel we need them.
Mhm.
Right. Well, I don't think Heritage Register Research New is not a meeting topic, I don't think, as such at the moment. It might be
Okay.
something we want to bring up because I think that would be ongoing background work, which can start happening as soon as we get through, as soon as we decide the assessment process.
Okay.
The January meeting, sorry, the December meeting should be January.
Yeah. And it would also include like final plans for the Heritage Week or final work for the Heritage Week.
God, sorry.
We're getting punchy.
So much. Okay. And then, do you want to make standing items then, like, let's say reviewing that, like doing a review of the work plan? Quick one every meeting, is that a good idea?
Sure.
Run our finger down those blocks.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's such a great visual. And we'll do the external stakeholders updates as we have now. As standing items.
Another thing that we did in another committee meeting earlier today was we put on the agenda for our next meeting a discussion of the island plan and the alignment of the strategic priorities as stated in the island plan and the work of the committee. And it might be worthwhile taking a look at the island plan together so that we can see where those connections are. It makes it easier to pitch to council if you kind of know where their planning priorities are. Because it's one thing for me to say, yes, the Heritage Strategic Plan completion is in the island plan, but if you don't see that in the context of all of the other municipal work, it's not as clear a picture as it ought to be.
And will there be subcommittees associated with these projects? We'll see in June.
July.
But there are subcommittees indicated in the work and based on the workshop input.
Okay, you want to share that?
For item 5, the Heritage Register, and item 3, planning tools and policies. That was what came up at the workshop.
And at this point, I'm not sure that we need a subcommittee for the planning tools and policies if we're just going to go with the work that we got from Don Luxton. But yes, for the Heritage Registry, ongoing research for the Heritage Registry.
So the strategic plan, you got table of contents in September,
Mm-hmm.
and the next time is you're finalizing in January.
Yeah.
Shall I stop sharing that then, or?
Yeah, it looks good to me. And very soothing.
Calms the anxiety, yeah.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you, but there's more on this agenda.
Yeah, I was just going to say, any
Everyone feels
comments?
done.
Any last comments about that work, about the work plan?
It's good.
Okay, let's move on then.
Oh, sorry, do we need some kind of, should we
Do we need a resolution?
approving it and sending it to council?
Yeah, we do.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Long day.
that's right. I was going to ask about that actually. Glad you reminded me. So with that, we do. I think we are required to. You know, one of the reasons why we're doing it in this meeting is I think that we're required to send a work plan every year, and this is, you know, we're a little bit late. So I'm kind of happy with that. You'll remember that Jennifer had that Word document that had various things outlined, and now this has been inserted into that along with the 2022 proposed budget. I would like to ask if anybody has any more comments about that work plan, and then after that, I'd like someone to move to approve it.
And I've emailed you the final version with all the edits that you talked about.
Okay, so as
Who's
amended.
nervous and wants to look at it, it's there in your emails now.
Okay. Judy, were you commenting or moving to approve?
Moving.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Getting stuff done.
Good work, everybody. Okay, moving forward. Heritage Workshop debrief.
I
Workshop
think
chart.
that was just an opportunity to provide all that information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we've already been through all of that stuff. Phase 1 council update, heritage resource assessment form. Okay. Then I think we can move forward to the updates. I'm quite excited about the next one, 6.1 Metro Vancouver update.
Okay. I reached out to Metro Vancouver a couple of days ago, asking if they could send us an update that I could share with the commission. So I received that this morning, and I'll send the email stuff to you for inclusion in the agenda package. So this is from Jeff Fitzpatrick, who is the division manager, regional parks for Metro Parks. And I'm just going to read it. Preamble, hello. Thank you for checking in on the Davies Orchard project. It's great to see it move forward, and I'm happy to provide you with an update. And just an aside, for those of you who haven't been in the orchard lately, 2 of the cottages have new roofs, and they're the right kind of roof. Yeah. So earlier this spring, we finalized our agreement with the province for the grant administered through Heritage BC, and have since received the $450,000 funding contribution. Over the next month, the project team will submit a building permit application to the municipality for phase 1, which will include upgrades to the 5 cottages, 10, 14, 18, 19, and 20, as well as water and electrical servicing improvements. We expect to tender phase 1 this fall and begin work before the end of the year. Construction will extend through 2022. We have taken a closer look at Cottage 12. Cottage 12 is the cottage directly behind the Tuscany, and are planning to take it down as part of the phase 1 work. It is located under a large conifer, is in very poor condition, and would require a complete rebuild. It would not be best practice to rebuild in this location. While this is a shift from the concept, we believe we can still achieve the intent of the plan. The clustered effect will be preserved by restoring the other 3 cottages and there will be ample opportunity for public access and enjoyment of those buildings in the broader site. Any reusable material from Cottage 12 will be salvaged for use in the upgrades to the other cottages. Phase 2 will include all of the site works, the paths, the access road and parking area, the picnic shelters, nature play, interpretive trail, orchard, and open space improvements. The final design of Phase 2 will be complete this year and tendered in late 2022 for construction in 2023, pending the regular budget approval process. The project team will work closely with BIM staff as the project moves forward. They're liaising directly with Liam Edwards. There are a couple of site design, permitting, and programming matters to coordinate. Regional park staff are also working on a communication strategy that will include an updated project website, coordination with Bowen Heritage, and with other stakeholders. I hope this update is helpful. I'm happy to provide any additional updates as the project moves forward and we confirm details and dates. Don't hesitate to reach out with any questions or to discuss any time. So are there any questions for me or for Jeff?
So there's another demolition?
There will be one more cottage taken down.
I think that would be my first comment, was disappointment that they're going to take another cottage down, especially when that assessment could have been done before removing the other cottages. Perhaps another cottage would have been better to keep.
I agree with you, Melissa. I think this is a little late to be coming up with a new wreckage plan.
And presumably the decision to preserve the 6 cottages was based on assessment that had been done previously. So, you know, that in itself seems odd. The second thing is, now we're talking, now that council has approved the heritage register, which includes the sites within Davies Orchard. That means now the proposal is to demolish a register, a structure that's on the heritage register, which is something that shouldn't be taken lightly, and also may need to have some process around it. And I think the commission should be thinking about whether it wants to make a statement that would be on the record for council regarding the precedent that this would set.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I agree
Yeah.
with you, for sure. It definitely needs a statement.
Yeah. And it's great that they're moving forward. I'm very happy that they've started working on the cottages and they're bringing it forward. I mean, we all were concerned that it seemed to be being deferred, and we were worried about competing other projects. So, you know, very happy that it's moving forward, but I am very concerned about plan to take down another cottage, particularly post assessment, post process, you know, consultation process and so on. It is very worrying. And I think that's you know, mentioning that it's now on the register, that's right. It shouldn't be done lightly. It's not something that's just something to just inform us about, in a way. Yeah, so do we want to make a statement from this meeting? I think that makes sense, doesn't it? Because timing wise, we should do that.
Well, I think we should probably base it, you know, from our committee on the point that Peter's brought up, that it's on the register of designated buildings. So
Not designated.
not designated, but
On the register, it has status. has recognition as being on the register.
Yeah, and I think that's, a very important thing to, it's the kind of reason there is a Heritage Commission.
Mhm. And it, to an extent, council held off. I got the impression that council held off a little bit on approving the register, partly so that Metro could go through their process and decide what they want to do. And so they did that, and that, council gave them a lot of space on that, and now like after that process, and they changed their mind again.
Well, if ultimately we're opposed to the demolition, then it would require it to be designated, and we'd have to go through that whole process. And I doubt very much that this council would play that game. So
I don't know that that's the decision that we need to make today. I think the decision we need to make is, do we want to comment on it or do we not want to comment on it? And ask for more. Do we want to ask for more information, or
what's phase one? What's the timeline on that?
Essentially now, and the building permit applications are going in this month. They'll tender in fall. And
do we have a demolition permit process?
Yes.
So they would be applying for the demolition permit at the same time that they would be applying presumably for the building permits.
I would expect so. The demolition permit restriction only comes into play with designated buildings, is my understanding.
Well, I think that it would be important and it would be helpful for us and hopefully council to put some time on the granting of the demolition permit, so that we can at least think about it and talk about it and decide what our position is going to be. Because if that's going in right away, then I mean, that's the demolition happened very, very quickly with the other ones. So
what I said, Judy, was I don't think we have the option of asking for a delay on a demolition permit unless the building is designated.
I think we do with the register.
no.
That's something I want
Yeah,
to look at.
there's a process under the heritage legislation that's called demolition delay. It's one of the tools.
Yeah.
We don't have the tools in the strategic plan, but it doesn't mean council couldn't use the tool. And that's available for any site that's on a register.
Jennifer,
To allow for looking at options to demolition.
Jennifer, were you double checking that?
No, I was just, I was remembering that we can't stop a demolition. That was my head shake on that.
The maximum amount of time, if we were able to stop, the maximum.
Probably 30 days.
It's 30 days. Yeah. But, I would hope that Metro would come and talk to us, not kind of motor ahead. Like, I wouldn't assume that would be, it would not be my expectation that government to government that they would just kind of push ahead with their plan without stopping to consult.
Presumably they're testing the waters on this.
No, I don't think they are. I think they're providing an update.
Mm.
They're also planning, I think I've mentioned this at least to Melissa, park staff are meeting with municipal council in the coming months regarding discussions that are beyond a discussion of the orchard. There are a number of issues, but the orchard will come up as part of it.
It was one of the ones that they wanted to demolish in their original plan, and they just left it alone. And it's they had said months and months ago that they wanted to have another engineer's inspection, and so they've had it in their target for.
Yes, I'm not sure that's like totally accurate, because they had they had two suggested plans, didn't they? One was to keep 6 and one was to keep 4, and that was one of the ones that was in the 4 plan that would have been demolished. I don't remember which the other one was in that plan, but probably.
Anyway, it's a community asset that is, and yet again being lost.
Yeah. So the other part of that, so look, I'd like to just quickly finish talking about this and then come back to what we want to, like a statement. The other part of it is, are they, in that update, were they talking about discussing the design of the landscape plan at all? As in like where the parking is going to go and things like that? And
It doesn't say anything about that.
yeah,
Melissa, one way or the other.
because that would also be, and because that doesn't, that drawing that I saw doesn't really make sense to me the more I think about it. And I would hope that they would talk to us about that at some point.
I'm just trying to find something here. So in the island plan, in the second section, one of the points is, this is the same section where it talks about the Heritage Strategic Plan. There's a point made to support Metro Vancouver's community involvement in the next phase of the Davies Orchard revitalization project. So that is in the municipal strategic plan.
Right.
And I hear that it's important for us to express concern about the demolition, but at the same time, if we can link our comments to council, our recommendation to council, with this particular point in the strategic plan, which council has signed off on, just reiterate that the Heritage Commission would like to be involved in that next phase. And I don't know what council will do with it, but at least it anchors the recommendation in the island plan.
Yeah. Right.
So, Maureen, excuse me, is the letter addressed to you personally as a council member?
It's an email addressed to me because I got in contact with the director of Metro Parks and said I would appreciate, I said our Heritage Commission is meeting next week and has asked, because Melissa and I have been chatting, has asked if an update on the Davies Orchard is possible. Is there anything you can provide? And this is what came in response. And he's given permission to me to share that with you and to share that with council.
And share it with council.
Yeah. So they received it today.
Okay, Maureen. So I
want
think
to see what I've started, and please forgive me.
Yeah.
There's some just starting.
All right. Yeah, revitalization's misspelled in the document, so
Oh no.
it needs to be corrected here.
Hmm,
Anyway,
right. So is this the way forward, Maureen, to send a resolution like this to council? Is that what we should do and not write to Metro ourselves or?
Oh, we can't do it ourselves.
Hmm.
We're a commission of BIM.
I would suggest that the third paragraph, rather than talk about demolition, say, whereas the Heritage Commission and Council is respectful of the Metro planning process, resulting in a plan to retain and restore 6 cottages, including cottage number 12.
yeah, I'm not super clear on the facts. Thank you.
Good.
The next whereas doesn't quite work either.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Just say is now planned to be demolished.
Proposed, could we have proposed?
No, I would say planned. They're planning, not proposing.
So just get rid of this bit. So, yeah.
And then the therefore it be resolved. It's got to be more, I think, more than expressing disappointment.
Yeah, yeah.
Expressing a concern and disappointment and concern.
Oh, both words?
No.
Maybe just concern.
Mhm.
And it's not really a disappointment in the process, although like I said, it's the process as well. Concern regarding Metro Park stated intention to demolish a heritage structure that is on the heritage register.
Covered off in the
Yeah, that's already.
whereas, I think.
I wonder, should there be another paragraph? Oh, sorry, no, sorry.
I guess it's or maybe we might just say and concern about the negative precedent that demolition of a site on the heritage register presents. You know, something like that.
Well, I was wondering if we should ask for more information and reconsideration. I mean, I kind of feel like we want to do more than just express disappointment and concern. We want to basically ask them to pause and ultimately ask them to stop.
There's probably
Or make another plan.
Probably several paragraphs, therefore it be resolved that one thing, that another thing.
Those kinds of resolutions don't go over well at council. You're better to be succinct.
Okay.
Sorry, you want me to stop? Okay, sorry, Maureen. You don't want that. I just had to get the thought off my fingers. So no demanding action? No call to action?
Maybe should it say maybe to Metro expressing concern and requesting clarification, or
How about it? And that dilemma and that demolition be delayed until alternatives to demolition can be considered.
What do you see as an alternative to demolition?
Sorry?
What do you see as an alternative to demolition?
Well, they could rethink fixing it, which was apparently feasible in the original building inspector report that they got. That cottage wasn't especially more expensive than the other cottages. Additionally, like if they're really concerned about the roots of the fir tree, which the fir tree has been growing there for 100 years with the cottage on it, so I don't really see that that's a big problem. But if they are worried about that, they could move it. That's the other option. I can't really see that working without it falling into splinters.
They're not digging a basement.
Yeah.
It's not with like technical.
You're frozen.
Sorry, PT frozen.
Options. Can you hear me?
You have to repeat that. You went frozen.
It's not up to us to come up with technical solutions. It's we're asking Metro Parks to look at alternatives. Metro Parks didn't say that it was impossible to retain the cottage. They just said it wasn't basically a good use of money or something that was worth doing. And so we think it is worth doing. And so an alternative from our point of view would be to look at a plan that maybe shifts some resources to spending what needs to be done to reasonably restore the cottage and make sure that it's structurally sound, and rather than demolishing it. It's just a matter of priorities and where they want to put the funding into. And some of that funding may be going into things that aren't related to the actual heritage structures. So
or at least or at least provide considerably more rationale than a last minute update. I mean, considering it's now on the register, we really need to have a stronger.
And they knew it was on the register, right? And they used that register to get the funding.
It's kind of cheeky of them to come back now, right? But I don't know that we should be encouraging them to come up with a rationale, which it's easy enough for them to do. They already have a rationale.
I agree.
I wasn't asking. I wanted to hear what the answer was to the question. You had a good answer to that question. Can I suggest a revision in the last, be it resolved, just requesting clarification and asking that demolition be delayed until alternatives can be considered. And
we're starting where, Maureen? After Metro Vancouver?
After clarification.
After no. Just leave it as is. So Metro Vancouver expressing concern, blah blah, requesting clarification and asking that demolition be delayed.
Oops.
Yeah.
You're italicized.
It's got italicized.
And then I think you've got your recommendation.
Yeah.
You've got
good job.
You want more info. You're asking that demolition be delayed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just reading it through, if that's all right with everybody.
So expressing concern regarding this precedent-setting decision, that's okay? Okay.
And requesting clarification.
But it's, okay. I don't.
What's up, Steph?
Oh, no, that's right. That's good.
Oh, yeah, I see. Expressing concern for request clarification and asking that. Okay. Sorry.
Do you want to consider changing that wording to say demolition be delayed such that alternatives can be considered? Otherwise, it looks like just delaying it until they're considered and then go ahead and demolish.
I like that.
So that.
Yeah.
Good catch.
Can we say such that?
I like such that.
I think if you're gonna say things like
I like
therefore
so
be it
that.
resolved, you might as well commit to the accent.
It is 7:15, guys, and are we ready to?
I move.
I'm getting hungry.
Someone needs a second.
Can I second it? Maybe
Second.
not. Andrew's second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'm going to abstain, which ends up counting as a yes.
Yeah.
in the system we use.
All right. Thanks, everybody. That's good. An appropriate response. I don't like, I'm very happy that they're working on it and that it's happening. I'm very happy to see the 2 new roofs. Happy that the cottages are hopefully not going to be there for another winter, being damaged by the elements. I'm happy that they are working on a plan to make the space more usable, but very disappointed to hear that they're planning to demolish one of the cottages after going through that process. So thanks for quickly responding and getting that statement together, everybody. Hopefully council can see that point too.
Steph, can you capture some of what Melissa said in the minutes?
Oh, that's a good idea. Sorry, I was just copying that resolution over to them.
Just for context. because-
Yeah, okay, sorry, I was happy that work is being done, sorry.
It's on YouTube.
Happy that the work's being done. Happy that the cottages aren't going to go another winter with and be open to the elements, that they're not going to be degrade anymore. Happy that the space is going to be made more usable by the plan being implemented, but very disappointed to see that there's a plan to demolish another cottage.
Could we also add?
Thank you.
Could we also add in, look forward to being involved in the design phase?
Design phase, yeah, I think that's important. I think they really do need to consult with islanders about that, because we get the space and we know how it will.
Right. Look forward to being involved in phase number,
It's
or the next phase.
in the planning for, let me just double check. In the planning for the design of phase 2.
Design of phase 2. Thank you so much for the recap. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Do we know anything about their building permit application? Like, are they asking to grandfather certain things that are, what we think are heritage values? I know that there was talk in terms of replacing all of the, what do you call it? The things around the porch. And that needed to be discussed. That they wanted to bring that into current building codes instead of the existing railings that are all there.
I don't know, Judy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think,
guess
I
we
mean,
could.
they haven't consulted at all about heritage values, right? So
They may have very well done some of that work without us being aware of it. If you remember, they had a heritage consultant who worked on the original report. I don't know who they're bringing in to do the work.
Yeah.
Those people could have expertise in that area. Just simply,
they didn't include much of the heritage consultants' information, though. They went with the engineers. So.
We probably want to have some input into some of those things, because they're, as there are alternatives to things like building code compliance. One option is you take out the existing railing and you make it higher, which is then out of scale. Another way would be to rebuild the railing at the same height, but add an additional metal rail or thin rail above that
Yeah.
on little stilts, right? So
But-
you've got the height you need without ruining the proportions of the building. So, you know, we need to see that.
The
So
other
Maureen, do you
building
have a
inspector-
thought about how we can try and ask to be consulted about that? Do you think, I mean, we could wait until the building permits come in and ask the, that we be notified by the municipal staff, or we could ask Metro to talk to us about it. I guess those are the two options that I can think of. Basically ask Metro to talk to us, or ask Muni staff to talk to us.
Or both.
The
What do you
simplest
think?
thing, the simplest thing would be to, for me to respond to Jeff Fitzpatrick and say the Heritage Commission had the following questions and concerns. Can you
Yeah.
provide some clarification? And to leave it at that.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I mean, I don't think these, we're talking to an extent, we're talking about details. So that, you know, it doesn't have to be pinned down right now. It just, we don't want to see everything going up, like, you know, before we get a chance to interject. Okay, that sounds good. That sounds like a good plan. Yeah, okay. I think that's that. Moving on then to the heritage organizations updates. And that's Andrew, Judy, and Peter. Who
Well-
wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Thank you, Andrew.
Meeting with staff today, and there's 2 new students coming in.
Nice.
Human Archives for the summer. There's a digitization grant of $65,000 to work on digitizing the collection. And the Museum and Archives is open to sharing and cooperating with the Heritage Commission in any way that would be useful, including possibility of being an archive for information that we generate that needs a place to be stored. They did a very nice little exhibit of some blankets last few weeks, right through the front door on the porch. It was very sweet. So work is going on, and everybody's in good spirits.
We should think about that, using them as an archive for what we generate for the Heritage Register. I think it seems like perhaps a better place in some respects than the municipality, or an additional place. Let's talk about that at the next meeting. Okay, from me, the next person is Peter. Did you hear back from Sarah?
No, but I didn't ask her until, I didn't get around to asking her until last night, but I didn't hear anything today. So no updates from on Bowen Heritage, at least from my side. I don't know if Judy knows anything.
No, sorry.
And then Judy, at council.
Have I told you the funding that we applied for with the Canada Council grant?
Nope.
Okay, so the Theatre on the Isle has put forward a proposal to the Canada Council grant, and we partnered with the Arts Council because they are a member of the Canada Council, and we've asked for research. This is a preparation for a theatre production. So we've asked for funding for people to do the research, both with the provincial archives and with our archives, and to do a draft of theatre script about Lieben. So
Nice.
that has gone in, and we received notice that the application was done correctly and that it's gone into the consideration process, but we don't know when. So we're thinking of Paul Huson and Kathy Bailey and Audrey Gresco and David Cameron as the people that will be hired. So yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, it'd be great if we can get a lot more background done, so we can, and that all that material will become a bit, if we get it, it'll be all available.
Cool.
So-
Okay. And then the last item is the island plan.
I believe that Jen had some Snug Cove design lines.
Oh, yes, that's right. Sorry, I'm
I
looking at
wonder
the,
if
yeah, 6.3 is the Snug Cove design guidelines.
I wonder if we could defer that if she's.
If she's,
I can't defer it.
if she's going away, she's
Deferring
not
it without me.
Can
I
you?
can do it like Micro Machine Man.
Yeah, please do that.
I'm do the super quick, just to get a feel from you guys about what you think. All right, I'm going to share screen again.
Just to say that the reason we're talking about this is because there obviously Snug Cove is where a lot of our heritage is. So.
Yep, and what you're looking at here is a draft version of the update to the Snug Cove design guidelines that we've been directed to do by council, keeping with the arts and crafts feel of the guidelines. And I'm not going to go through all these different sections in the interest of time, but just to give you a feel of, you know, the fact that there are sections to this. So what you're seeing here, this is the checklist that applicants would use that gives kind of a summary of what all is in the guidelines. So there's all these different objectives so that it would be artistic and handcrafted, community oriented, human scale design, pedestrian experience. Heritage highlights is the one we'll look at in detail. Natural park ambiance, parking flexibility, and rural character. So those are the categories that the design guidelines are under. And within each of these categories, there are 4 items. The first item is always mandatory, and the last 3 items earn points. And each building, depending on whether it's residential or mixed, just not purely residential, and whether it's in the village area or the area just outside of that. The name is escaping me now in my fast presentation mode. Will depend on how many points they need. So what that tells you then is that each proposal should be earning the mandatory item under each one of these. So they're all hitting something within these. And then they have full flexibility as to where they would earn points otherwise. And if they are not able to meet a mandatory item, then they would indicate other on here and provide a justification here for consideration by the panel. So, but the intent is that they would meet the mandatory items. So if we go then to the heritage highlights section, which like the others has a single mandatory item and 3 point earning items. So you can see what that looks like. H, okay.
Is this publicly available, Jennifer?
I believe it was part of the minutes of the last ADP meeting, but it hasn't come to council yet.
Okay, thank you.
Can you share that with us?
I haven't yet,
Can you though?
though. I think I'm
I
supposed
will try to find the
Do not.
ADP agenda and send it to you.
Okay. I'm sure Randy's been involved probably with this.
well, in that, isn't he on the ADP? I think he is.
Yes, he is.
So in that way, yes, but I would caution you that I have just shown this to ADP 2 weeks ago, and I'm still getting comments back from them. So this is not to say that this was approved by them or anything like that. They've seen it.
But it'd be interesting to review and have a look at.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I would just include it as a late item on this agenda since you're seeing it now. So I can email it to you, but it's definitely in a draft form. There are some sections that are just not even complete yet, but
I like the
but
details with
this
the
approach
porch
is what it
details.
is. So this first one is the mandatory one, which just says that if there's any places on the register, they should retain some aspects of any remaining elements, at least in some part, if not entirely, generate photographic or other records of these elements, and install educational signage acknowledging and explaining heritage aspects of the site. So that means that if the site does not host any places listed on the local heritage register, there's nothing that they would have to necessarily do. So it's really dependent on what is currently in the register. It gives a lot of emphasis on that. So that's an important thing to note. And then the other items, which are all optional, one is to retain an Indigenous advisor that would implement elements reflecting Indigenous local culture. The second one would be to integrate heritage building details reminiscent of local heritage buildings with examples, or these landscapes reminiscent of heritage landscapes. So either one of those would be appropriate in that one. And then the final one is additional educational image about heritage on or near the lot, including textual and visual information displayed publicly in a durable way. They may display historic artifacts from the area, publicly viewable and protected from ongoing damage. So those are 4 items in heritage.
So sorry, so this is for the contextual design of new construction on sites with heritage
Or additions.
or additions, but you know, for additions and for treatment of existing buildings, that would probably be covered under the historic places and guidelines that would probably be incorporated into our heritage policies.
Right. So this would be in addition to those other policies. It's just a baseline thing. Yeah.
So I think personally, I would like that H1 doesn't seem to quite hit the spot from a Heritage Commission perspective.
And I can tell you that these mandatory pieces, I have recently rewritten them to make them more flexible. So that's one reason why this is more flexible. Originally, it was less.
Right.
But I'm trying to, because there are so many mandatory pieces, make sure that none of them are going to be adding costs necessarily to the design of the building, because
I think
I'm trying not to make it too burdensome. But
yeah, I mean, I would have thought
I'm definitely open to your comments.
I was just going to say, I would have thought that what it ought to say is if it's on the Heritage Register, it should, you know, go down that stream, right? Like it should be a heritage process and not a design guideline process, because it should be the heritage, it should be heritage that's talking, Heritage Commission that's talking about it, or staff alternatively talking about it from a heritage perspective, not the design committee, because they're not skilled. In principle, we're skilled in heritage, and the design committee is not in principle skilled in heritage, especially if it's on the register. That should definitely be something that is being talked about by the heritage peeps and not by the design peeps, it seems to me. So I think that should basically refer, it should probably refer to a different process, and that if it's not on the register, then it could be included in this process.
There's a potential here for mixed messages and confusion, and which predominates. Particularly, you know, the H1 could be read as, let's say, Metro Vancouver says, well, under H1, it says preserve, retain some aspects of remaining elements. So maybe we just this is encouraging us to save one cottage and demolish the other 5 because save some aspects. So again, I think this could be, we want to make sure that this can't be used in a way that undermines our heritage standards and policies and sends mixed messages.
And send mixed messages, make people confused. Like they could think that they've done everything right and then get slapped with a designation in principle. Sorry.
And confuse staff too.
Yeah, I think procedurally the way this will work is that this will be massaged through the advisory design panel. It'll come to council, and council refers it out to additional committees where it wants feedback on the guidelines. I'm super conscious of the time, and our 2 staff people are 1 hour overtime on this meeting. So I do think we need to bring it to a close.
Yeah, I think that's probably sufficient on that for now. Thanks for drawing it to our attention. And we'll see what happens with that. Yeah. And thanks to everybody.
I just wanted to say thanks for that input about having there be kind of another path. Can definitely bring that up to the ADP and see what they think about that. And if you have any other thoughts about this, I'll share it. If you have any other thoughts, because I'm going on leave, if you have the opportunity to provide those like by midday tomorrow's my last day. So that's the most helpful. Otherwise, I don't know where your comments will go. Like into the ether somewhere. So yeah, if you can, if that's possible, it would be great to get those then, although I know I'm asking for quite a quick turnaround. But it won't be your last opportunity either.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks
Have a
everybody.
really good leave.
Yeah.
Jennifer, have a really good leave.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks.
All the best.
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks everybody.
Night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good meeting.
Bye.